So, see any good moves lately? Welcome back to episode number 8 of See Any Good Moves Lately, the Survivor 50 coverage. It's true. I'm your host, Joey Operding, and today I am joined by the Bodacious, the young, the respectable, the crazy, and the eccentric Bryce. How are you doing, Bryce?
Wow, what an intro. I'm doing great, Joey. It's Saturday when this is being recorded, and so the sun is shining, and I would much rather talk about Survivor inside.
I mean, hey, me too. And here we are. I'm happy about it. So there you go.
We
I
are.
mean, look, I'm glad to be talking to you, Bryce, about an interesting Survivor episode in an interesting season.
Agreed.
Um, Look, it's Survivor 50. It's the 50th season. They're saying this. They're telling me this. I have to ask you, Bryce, what have been your thoughts on this season so far? And I'm
Mhm.
curious, how have they sort of played with your expectations going in?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this season for me started off super strong. I mean, the first I would say 4 episodes all just hitting the mark. I'm like, man, this is great. We had some new era, we had a journey or two, whatever, and I was like, was expected, right? But then I think with the double boot followed by a triple boot, followed by this past week when D gets ousted pretty unanimously, it just was like, okay, we're kind of slowing down a little bit. But this week I kind of felt like, okay, we're kind of picking back up. I'm kind of getting more excited. The coaching Chrissy of it all was just, I was enjoying watching their demise personally, but I've been lately. It's been a little bit slow, but I'm hopeful in this next phase of now we're kind of actually at the final 11, which is where a normal new era season would have started to the jury at this point. I do think it has potential to kind of go up from here. I am worried about the preview for next week. We'll get into that, I'm sure. But overall, I would say it's maybe my expectations were a little high for the season. I think overall, though, I think some of the obviously the cameo appearances, whether mentioned or not on the outside, and just some of the twists, I hate that every time, and I'm sure people have said this before, of I didn't vote for this personally, but sure, I will take the blame, I guess, in some sense. I guess I'm forced to take the blame. But yeah, I mean, it's been a good season. It's been a fun time. I typically watch with my friends who are new to Survivor. They really have only seen the new era season. So it's kind of fun for me because I've seen all of these people play, but they're like, who's Suri? And then I had a friend and he was like, I just don't get why you love Suri so much. And I was like, just trust me. Just trust.
Yeah.
And then every week he's been like, I get it. So I'm like, it's been fun in that sense for me. But I would say if I was watching this solo, I think my expectations have not been met. But we still have some time to make up for it. I'm interested to see at the end where the season ranks for me. But right now, it feels like it's been on a down low. But I have hope that we're going to start that trajectory upward.
Yeah, no, I would say so far they've been a little lower than my expectations going in, but that's mostly just because of the twists. However, I mean, I do think it's important to mention that, hey, we're 8 episodes in and we're only just now getting to sort of the meat and potatoes of the season. So, I mean, and there's been a lot of meat and potatoes on the plate already. So, I mean, I think that's a good sign. I think inevitably when you have 24 people, really, I think the thing that I would say about this whole thing is maybe we shouldn't have had 24 people. I don't know.
Yeah, I think for me, it's more of if we're gonna I didn't mind the 24 people. I was like, that's great. I love that we got to see a few more people. Maybe
I feel the same way. Yeah.
Too many new era people, maybe. But I was like, sure, whatever. Or maybe get a more diverse subset of them, regardless. But I was like, but my thing was more like, why are we doing 26 days? Why are you trying to shove all this into a condensed? I think if you're gonna do the 24 player thing. And I don't know if you watch Australian Survivor, but they do 24 people in 45 days. Yeah. And you don't need to do 45 days. They kind of maybe overdo it in that sense of too many days. But I would say like we could have maybe gone back to 39 for 24 people, but I don't know.
I don't know. It feels like, in my opinion, there's just some stuff that I don't see CBS budging on at this point. One of them is 26 days, and one of them is staying in Fiji. And it's like, if
Yeah.
any of that stuff changes, I will be a joyous guy. But I feel like I have to keep my expectations realistic for this type of thing, and
Sure.
I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know. But hey, let's start getting into this episode. But of
Yeah.
course, we can't really talk about this episode without talking about last episode, which was when Coach took over, and Coach
Mhm.
took over and said, "I want D out." So I want to ask you, Bryce, what were your thoughts on this episode? Did you think it was the right move for everyone to get rid of D? Tell me, please.
Yes, I don't know if it was the best move for everyone necessarily, but I do tend to think that after this whole blood moon knocking out 3 people followed up by a 14-person vote, I think people were just looking for an easy target.
Sure.
And D unfortunately gets in this fight with Jonathan, and I think there was more steam for the, honor and integrity people to kind of just be like, let's just get D out. I do think Coach's antics were like a little over the top for the
Mhm.
sense of like him trying to dictate a vote, but that's just how Coach is. Like it's not and never. And I'm just like sick and tired of this honor and integrity crap. I thought we were done with it in 48, but obviously we're not. So, but I just feel like in some sense, like for someone like Emily or Rizzo, like I mean, Emily, it's probably a little bit different because she knows D, but like maybe not
Mhm.
Emily's not the best example of that. But maybe Sari, who like Sari did work with D for that vote against Charlie, but maybe doesn't
Yeah.
need D necessarily. And so she's probably fine with it and was like, it's not me, that's great. And let's move on. So I think for some people it was a really good move. For others, I'm not so sure. Obviously, Tiffany does not benefit a lot from it, but it wasn't really her decision. And I do think to some extent that like Rick or Rizzo, even maybe and Ozzy, maybe should have kept D around for a little bit, just because I think she just has this big target on her back anyway. So like, why bother?
Yeah.
But I think because Coach was so like gung ho about it, I do think that like everyone was just like, let's just fold and see where it goes from there.
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting point, and I want to sort of talk about the shield aspect of D
Mm-hmm.
because I think it was kind of universally agreed upon that, hey, D, one of the bigger shields in the game, maybe the biggest shield still left in the game. And I think I agree with your point in theory of like, hey, you want to keep a shield as long as possible. But also, I
Sure.
feel like votes like this are what the shields are for, to be like an
Right.
easy consensus boot of like,
Mm-hmm.
well, we got 13 people left in the game still, or whatever it was, 14, something like that. We need to start getting rid of people. And I feel like with these giant merges, it always comes down to consensus every time. The first boot is always consensus. So I
Yep.
think being like, well, let's just get rid of the winner. I think that's fine. I think it's fine. I don't love it because I'm a D fan, but I understand it. So, that's my perspective though.
Yeah, I'm also a D fan, and I agree with you that I guess it is kind of the point in keeping those shields, but I feel like that's like more down the line. I think is kind of my like this was the first vote of the merge, like
Yeah.
and keeping someone like D in could be beneficial for maybe weeks like this week where you have the double twist, and it's like, well, if D's paired with so and so, like, oh, I kind of want them out too. Let's just throw D. But I also see your point too of like, this is kind of what the shields are for. But I just don't know how established of a shield D had been at that point. Especially being the only winner left. That
Yeah.
was like a big thing, I think, as well.
But it's interesting too, like going to this episode because
Mm-hmm.
not to say Chrissy was, but Coach was also kind of a shield in his own right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for I think a different reason than D was, where D was like, this player is very good, and she won, which means she's good, which means that she's a target. With Coach, I think a lot of it was just this guy is just annoying or whatever. So it's interesting because I Coach was definitely targeted for more reasons this episode than just that. But it is funny how it sort of manifests towards like I feel like when one shield goes, like it's gonna keep happening. Like you're gonna keep
Sure.
seeing these shields get targeted. So we'll see what happens with that. But that's my perspective.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I feel like you make a good point of like the next shield could just, we could be cycling through this whole situation. But at the same time, I even think with this move of getting out Coach and Christie was good for some people and not good for other people.
Yeah,
And granted, we'll talk about like how much Devins had to do with that and all these other things. But at the same time, I also feel like when it comes to shields, like it's kind of one of those things where like, maybe Suri kind of wants to keep a shield around, and then her
sure.
shield is kind of Rizzo and Ozzy at this point of like Ozzy's good at challenges, Rizzo's an unknown quantity. They seem I'm threat. So keep the people that It's one of those things where I just feel like not really sure of what threat is going to benefit over the other in terms of like getting one of the targets out.
For sure, for sure. Well, hey, let's start getting into this episode because there was a bunch of interesting stuff. So, I mean, the first thing we get is, Tiffany comes back after being blindsided for the second straight episode and is none too happy about it. But, the people back at camp say, hey, we're going to talk to Tiffany later, and we'll definitely get back to that. But then when the day starts, a Bubba boat arrives at camp, drives up, and it's like, oh God, it's a boat. And the message being delivered is you gotta split up into pairs. And so that started happening. We started getting some pairs formed. And I find it interesting the way that they did this because
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was pure choice, but it appeared I guess they put like their buffs or something or parts of their bag into a bag, but also I think that they still maybe chose afterwards. I was very confused by how they actually did it, but what matters is they picked they picked themselves and they picked their own groups using some group devised method before we actually got into the challenge and learned what the duo's twist was. So I wanted to ask you what your thoughts were on that starting off.
Yeah. Well, I actually really like the way that they did this in terms of like, here's what we're doing. You're going into pairs for this next challenge. And it was kind of interesting because at one point, I just rewatched the episode this morning, but of like Joe kind of comes in and they're like, hey, what happened on your season with this? And he's like, oh, we kind of just like did pairs and everyone was just kind of like adults about it. And we picked our pairs. And then I think they asked everybody who wanted to maybe sit out.
Oh,
How would
right,
that
that was it.
happen?
Yeah.
And they all put their shot in the darks, which I don't know if this has always been the case, but have their names always been on them? Because like they all had their names on them, and I was like, that's so like I noticed that like a while ago, but when Christian gave his to Ozzy, but I was like, wait a minute, since when do they have names on them? I don't.
I like the idea of that being like a late change. Like once somebody like first gave their shot in the dark to somebody else, and it's like, oh my God, this is so confusing. Whose is whose or something like that.
Right,
Um,
exactly.
I like the idea of that, or like, during the Rice negotiation, a survivor staple, I guess. Like, turning over your shot in the dark. But yeah, I don't know. The thing is when we see these shot in the darks, we never get like a close glimpse of them. So I have no idea if they've had
Well,
their
they
names
did. I
on
mean,
them.
that's how like they were like, oh, sorry, like that was her shot in the dark that coach pulled out of the bag, which I was like, man, if Suri had to give up all of the luck that she's lost in these other 5 seasons that she's played in, at least she got to jump 2 spots automatically. So I was pumped about that.
Yeah.
And so I do think it was interesting because they do it. It kind of gave them like a vagueness of like, here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna divide into pairs for this challenge, and they even like bring back like I said before of Joe being like, oh, they just like did this, and then like we kind of competed against each other, and then at the end, like the best pairs like would move on to the final. And it kind of made it not seem like it was this big twist, which
Yeah,
I
that's
do.
true.
I think there has to be a balance because there's some people out there that are like, I hate when people don't understand the twists when they're making the decisions. And I agree with that, but there kind of has to be some vagueness to it. Like there
Yeah,
has
for
to
sure.
be some kind of like, you can't really give them the whole, because then what I liked about this twist was the fact that they didn't know what it was and they kind of didn't make their pairs based off of who they wanted to go in or out with. Because I think if they had known that, I don't think Jonathan pairs with Christian. I think Jonathan maybe pairs with like somebody else that's like in his alliance, maybe with Joe, or maybe like make Aubrey and Tiffany come together because they're on the bottom. Like I feel like I'm glad that there was like, hey, this is what's happening, but they didn't get the why behind it until later. And then I was like, that feels like more game reformations, because like Jonathan gets Christian because Christian's good at challenges or good at puzzles, and Jonathan's not. So it's like that's benefiting Jonathan, but then later it's like, oh crap, if people vote Christian, then I'm also gone. So I appreciated the way that they went about doing this twist this time.
I also do think that like what people each other chose for the twist, for this challenge, for whatever, shows a lot about how aware they are of their position in the game or whatever else. Because I think, some people just kind of got stuck with each other. Like I'm pretty sure Rick Devens and Aubrey just kind of got stuck with each other, and it was like, hey, we're working together anyway. But it's like, I think it's very interesting that, Emily and Rizzo specifically, went with each other, or, Jonathan went to Christian. I think that shows, I mean, obviously, I guess when I'm saying this, but it shows to me more awareness of how to sort of cross into other circles, or to do that efficiently, than like Coach or Christy did, who just chose each other because they thought they were in such a comfortable position they could do that. It's interesting, even if you don't know that it's going to be a double boot, because why would you, frankly? That's basic Survivor strategy of like, don't show your hands if you don't have to.
Right.
So I think that's interesting for sure.
Because I do think that like Christian is like, I cannot be with Rick, or like I can't be with Emily. Like he knows that straight up. Like I don't think he like has that game sense to be like, I don't need to show my cards in that way, especially when the cards are kind of already shown. Like they kind of already know they're kind of friends, so I don't think I need to like really emphasize it. But I also wanted to ask you, because I was really interested by this scene before this all happens. They divide into pairs, but Jonathan, Stephanie, and Chrissy kind of all come together, and they're like talking about their alliance of honor and integrity.
And
they're talking about how they have all these people, but I don't see them having all these people. So I just was curious as to like how you think they got there in terms of, I mean, some of it has to be pregame alliances or previous experiences, but I was curious at your take on that, because I rewatched the episode and I was like, oh, I did forget that happened.
I will answer that question twofold. Number one, I think the reason they thought that is they probably conflated, people going along with the plan against D as people wanting to work with the alliance long term. Like they weren't thinking voting blocks, they were thinking giant alliance. Or if they were thinking voting blocks, they were thinking this is a block that can last longer and maybe turn into a real alliance. I think that was one. Number two, when it comes to the pre-gaming stuff, just in general, I am a skeptic of, maybe this is a little glass half full of me, but I'm always a skeptic of how much pre-game relationships will actually influence a season. Like, I think All Stars is a good example where you could say, yeah, pre-game relationships did a lot for the first half of that season, or like maybe the first third, getting rid of all the winners. But when the actual true Survivor game started, like at the merge, all those got thrown out the door. And that's probably the most pre-merge or pre-game season, I should say, of Survivor ever, including Survivor 50. And I think, I think we're seeing that there. I think there are pre-game relationships, which I think is a little different than pre-gaming. Like, I think, boy, Christian and Emily working together, I'm shocked by that. You were shocked by that. We are not shocked by that. But I think that's also just kind of how it goes with returnee seasons. In terms of the, Zoom Alliance or whatever the other one was, I'm sure that was real. But I think this episode is a turning point to show that, hey, that doesn't really matter when, we're not looking for any excuse to target or not target someone anymore. And it's going much more to the individual portion of the game and trying to win the $1 million. So there you
go. Sure. I agree. I do. Yeah, people talk about the pregame, and honestly, maybe with people with exit press talking about pregame alliances, maybe they're just a little bitter. And, I think to your point, I think it matters a lot more in the pre-merge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think a great example of that, even though this technically was the merge and all that stuff, but I think a big part of that was the Camilla ousting in the
Sure.
Blood Moon. I think that one for sure. I'm like, oh yeah, that one totally makes sense. Like Jonathan, Chrissy, and Stephanie, I think are one of some people to be known to be in this pregame alliance, and so like yeah, it kind of makes sense for them to like, hey, let's just get everybody forward, and we'll just make Tiffany mad and not worry about it later. Um, but at the same time, I do think that there is a significance to them. And I do think that even like with the whole Suri and Stephanie advantage back and forth they had last week, it's like Suri knows Stephanie. Suri knows how Stephanie
Yeah.
is, how she plays the game, how she lies or does not lie. And that also is a huge factor. And, you know, I don't think Suri's over here like, I'm going to work with Stephanie to the final three. Like, I don't think she is in that way. Suri's very fluid in that. But so I do think that it's like significant, but not final.
Yeah. No, I think it's an interesting point all around, just like in terms of how much does it matter? I do think it matters for the eliminations. I think Camilla was unrightfully taken out. I think, you know, I don't know. I don't really know if anybody else I can strongly say, oh, they were eliminated because of pre-gaming. Because like I just think about the season and what's happened so far, and I'm like, well, was Jenna ousted because of pre-game relationships? I don't think so. Was Savannah? Probably not. Probably just because she was a 49er. You know, and Q, I don't think so. I think a lot of this is just like I think people will make excuses to get rid of who they want to, and it's like maybe I'm wrong, but I'm just assuming that Suri did not have any like pre-game alliances because I feel like she never does.
Yeah, I also don't think. And when you say that, I think really the only time I think I've heard something where like Jenna and Suri maybe talked beforehand, but then Jenna came guns blazing for her.
Yeah,
She got on the beach, so it was like, wait, what? And so then it didn't matter. But
yeah.
yeah, I agree with you though. I do
But it's
think a
like,
lot.
if someone like Suri, who
Right.
theoretically, as I have said since episode 1, should have been the first one to go home, just
Yep.
basically objectively, manages to sneak through and is still not being targeted, even though she wasn't in a Zoom nor a whatever the other one alliance was, or a Blood in the Clock Tower alliance. Um, then it's like, okay, it doesn't matter that much. It's picking, and maybe it's picking and choosing by default what matters because it's
Mhm.
it's all very fluid, blah 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 blah. But I don't I don't expect this pre-gaming stuff to affect the game going forward. And I think the more
Right.
eliminations after this that harp on, well, he just got screwed out by, blah 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 blah. I think that is cope. I kind of think it's mostly cope already, but like
Mhm.
Camilla is a good example of someone who was like, yeah, okay, I'll give it up. Yeah, you got out pre-gamed. I'm sorry. You got out zoomed. They zoomed on you. But yeah, it's interesting for sure. Um, but it's fun because, one aspect of the pregame alliance kind of shows up in this episode where it's the difference between the old school and the new school. Because I think, Coach is kind of leading this old school charge. He's doing something. And then you have someone like Tiffany, who has been on the outs for the past two votes, who's way, way more new era. And these two are kind of on opposite sides, but that doesn't mean that they can't have a conversation. And so I want to talk about the great conversation between Coach and Tiffany from this episode. Where Coach, who is I guess trying to play the game, but still with honor and integrity, decides to go to Tiffany and say, "It wasn't me who threw your name out." And Tiffany asks, "Well, then who did?" And then Coach looks longingly into the distance, like he knew he just screwed up. What are your thoughts on this? Are there any thoughts to be had on this? I mean, I don't even know.
Yeah, it's so funny to me. Like I love the fact that these, the coach and the Joe and like they're getting seen in these situations where they're like honor and integrity, like this is what the base of the game is, doing all this other stuff. And then you get scenes like this where Tiffany just straight up asks, like, okay, then who was it? And coach has no words to say. And it's just like one of those like getting your hand caught in a cookie jar kind of vibe of like,
Yeah,
you know, and there is a dichotomy of that though, where it's like Ozzy and even Joe to an extent, like comes to Tiffany and goes, "Hey, I voted you out. I didn't really want that, but I kind of felt strong armed into doing it because of Coach." Like, kind of just laying the cards out there of how they saw the situation. And obviously, you see it from both Tiffany's perspective of Ozzy and Joe of like, "Hey, like if you want to work with me now, that's great." Because I think Tiffany has a great, and I think that's the thing with like old school versus new school. Coach is like, well, I voted against Tiffany. There's no way we can work together. Whereas Tiffany's like, Ozzy and Joe did vote for me, but like I kind of have nowhere else to go. I have to be fluid and be willing to, especially if they're wanting to come to me and tell me, hey, I voted you out. I'm sorry. So, I think it's a very key. I think this conversation itself is not very like eye-opening in some senses, but I think the differences between the conversation she had with Coach versus Ozzy earlier in the day, it seemed. I don't really know the order of these things, but I'm like, wait, when did this conversation happen? Anyways, I just feel like Coach just is incapable of doing anything other than his honor and integrity BS. Which is
I think that's very true, and I think we've actually saw that quite a bit this season, especially when it comes to these new era players who have a bit of fire under them. Like going back to D, there was the conversation from a few episodes ago where Coach was like, "Yeah, I heard blah 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 was throwing your name out," and she was just like, "Well, why didn't you tell me earlier?" And he was like, "Oh gosh, she got me. She got me. Oh, I never thought about. Oh no, I never thought about the repercussions for my actions or lack thereof."
right.
Which I think is kind of fun. It makes Coach a very fun personality, in my opinion. Some might say the most fun personality ever, in my opinion, on Survivor. But that's just me. But yeah, it is interesting, and so we get that chat, and it's
Mhm.
it's funny because, like, at that point, to me, I was like, "Well, unless something crazy happens, I think Coach's goose is a little cooked." But,
Mhm.
then we get to the actual twist, right? The actual
Mhm.
twist of this
Yes.
episode, the duo's twist, and Jeff
Terrible
Gold
marketing, by the way.
yeah, I for a show that's still so popular, Survivor's marketing really needs an upgrade, I think, in general. I think
I agree.
it needs to know why people like it, and I don't think it does. But also, we're not casual fans, so maybe they
That
they
is
love
true.
a whatever the promo is for
Well,
this
what
episode.
even was it? Double duo? Is that what they called it?
I don't even know if they gave it a formal name. I don't know. I'm just calling it the duos twist and moving on with my life. Um, I mean, double duos sounds. I mean, that's like saying chai tea, right? I don't know.
Right. The official, Survivor Wikia says double duo. So that's again.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Well, here are the duos. Coach Chrissy, Christian Jonathan, Joe Tiffany, Rizzo Emily, Ozzy Stephanie, Rick Devins, and Aubrey. And we kind of already talked about a decent amount of these, but I did think it was interesting when they announced the twist. I gotta wonder if some people were regretting their choices on who to pick. Just because I mean, some of the people next to you are probably getting targeted. The person I'm talking about in this case is definitely Chrissy, who has her mouth open wide and is like hunched on her knees while everybody else is still standing pretty stoically. She's just like absolutely shocked. Maybe that's just Chrissy, but I thought that was a funny part of this image when I screenshotted it. But yeah,
No, I agree. And I do think she definitely had some regrets. And I think I know Rick and Aubrey probably had regrets, but it's kind of like what we said earlier. They probably were kind of forced into that. So it's not really much of their fault. They just kind of got stuck in that position.
yeah,
But I will say for the most part, I think some of the people, like, I'm sure Christian and Jonathan are probably fine because they probably thought they had a good chance at winning immunity.
yeah.
Um, I was curious about the Rizzo and Emily of it all. I was kind of worried that they might have gotten sniped in this episode, but it just kind of seemed like Chrissy was the only one that was going after them. But yeah, I do think there was probably some regret. And I think, again, it goes back to the like wanting to give them information about what's coming, but
Hmm.
not too much to where they can game it and like automatically. Because like it really came down to like social relationships in a few of these, like for sure. And some of it was convenience. Like Rizzo asked Christian at one point, like, "Do you have a partner, Christian?" Christian's like, "I do." which by the way, the fee fi fo fum killed
Very
me.
funny.
That was
Yeah,
so
very
funny.
funny.
And then, but then it's like Christine Coach, like they're already, but I think for them, it was like, oh, they're already really good friends. Like I've seen some exit press where Chrissy has said like they were besties on the island. And I was like, interesting.
Interesting. Yeah.
So it's like, you know, and I'm sure for her, she's like, ah, crap, Coach has just been like doing all this nonsense for 24 hours. And now I'm stuck with him in terms of like what, and I agree with you. Her face said it all. And
yeah.
that maybe could have been a hint for us.
I mean, hey, like I think it's interesting because I mean we kind of been talking nice about the twist because I think it was a good twist, but it's like I mean compared to the infamous blood moon, it's like it really is night and day on how you can do a twist that changes the game and is something we've never seen before. Where
Right.
the blood moon was just a worse version of something that, in my opinion, was already bad, which is just like this split tribal council during the merge, and then the duos is like, oh, this is actually fresh. Dot dot dot. But to me, I just hope that they don't see the actual success of this twist and are like, okay, we got to do this a million more times. We got to do 24 people every season because I don't think that should be the answer.
No.
But yeah.
I agree with you. I definitely think that this, I mean, so far from what we've seen of Survivor 50, I mean, we've kind of seen the gaming of the Billie Eilish idol. We've seen, you know, the Blood Moon. You know, we had Zach Brown. That was
who could forget? Yeah.
And you know, out of all the things that they've brought in this season, this is probably the best.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess that's true. I mean, I don't know what else would really come close, honestly. I mean, you know, if you count 24 people as a twist, I guess that's pretty good. Like I don't mind 24 people. It's just if you're doing it in 26 days, that makes it a little awkward, of course. Yeah, but beyond that, the twists have mostly been very much like, all right, okay, all right, I don't know. But also, I guess that's kind of the nature of a returnee season is they usually throw in some wacky twists. Like I do actually, I will say I like Exile Island being back. I think that's a fun little that's a fun little twist of the knife. You know, I appreciate how it keeps screwing over the people who have been to Exile Island a bunch, whether it's Ozzy or Suri. Just like the Micronesia difference, I guess.
Yeah.
That's been fun, even if Exile Island was objectively good for Suri. But hey, we'll get to that. Look, the challenge happens, and the winners. The challenge happens. It always happens. And the winners end up being Joe and Tiffany, which is interesting because, of course, Tiffany is kind of turbo on the block by herself, but I don't know necessarily how much she'd be on the block if it were her and Joe, or if that would make the problem even worse. So, do you think that this was like an immunity that they had to win, or do you think that they could have been safe had they not?
If I'm thinking about the pairs themselves and because like who was in the final three pair? It was Joe and Tiffany, and then it was Aubrey and Rick, and then I can't remember the third.
I believe the third one was Stephanie and Ozzy.
Stephanie and Ozzy, yeah. I think honestly, if Joe and Tiffany hadn't won that, I think they're fine regardless. I don't think that I think because Joe is attached to Tiffany, Joe would not go. I think a lot of people in this like honor and integrity group really like Joe, and even people who are not. Like we saw, like Rizzo did not want to leave Joe out of the vote, and so I don't think that Joe and Tiffany would have been in trouble. I think that was actually like honestly kind of a great move for Tiffany to get on Joe's side and get paired up with him in this situation. Obviously, she didn't know at the time what the twist was going to be, but like I think it's very beneficial for her to be in that spot because I don't think anyone wanted to get rid of Joe.
Sure.
I think if anything, because in my mind, that whole challenge, like you kind of thought that Aubrey and Rick were going to take it because they were in such a big lead and, you know, they, you know, are puzzle people. So, I mean, it was a maze. So it's like a little bit different, but, you know, I was kind of like, oh crap. That's why I was kind of a little more about Emily and Rizzo because I was like that. I think Emily and Rizzo would replace the target that Aubrey and Rick had they won. So I think in this situation, I think Joe and Tiffany are probably fine. But I think in a twist like this, I think in any twist where like immunity, like for the Blood Moon or for this, like I'm going for it. Like I'm not throwing a challenge for that. Like I refuse to be twisted out of the game, in my opinion. So I don't know if they needed to win it, but I think regardless, I think they were going to be safe.
Yeah, I think so too. I think for slightly different reasons than what you're saying. I think the reason I think they would be safe is really has nothing to do with Tiffany. Once again, it does have all to do with Joe, but I think it's less about people wanting to target Joe rather than there being no reason to target Joe. Because I think if we look at who's left in the game and look at our GOAT candidates, I think Joe is one of the highest ones, especially now that Coach is gone. It's
100%.
Joe has proven that he has no idea how to talk strategy. Over and over, really. It's a consistent thing. And he's also proven that he doesn't know how to do a speech at Final Tribal Council. So why assume anything has changed?
Yeah. And
I know I wouldn't.
I even think, like, even preseason, I was like, man, that kind of sucks for Joe. He just watched himself lose $1 million and kind of get clowned on by his fellow tribe mates. And then he just goes on the next season and it just has to, like 2 weeks later, I think it was, or something like that. Something weird of like a week or two later, he had to just go back out to Fiji. And I was like, again, I think it was back to these people that played so close together. I'm like, you could have waited a little bit longer to come back. But also, if you're getting asked to go to 50, I think you said yes to go to 50. But
of course,
and I think that's kind of carried with. I think Joe has been much different for me this season. Like, even though I knew he was like not a great game player the last time, and Kyle and Camilla were running around him the whole time. Like this season, he's just been. I think he's been in a weird headspace. I think a lot of that has been from his loss that he had just watched.
For sure, and I actually wanted to talk about this, so I'm glad that you segued into it. Where I mean, we'll talk about Sari, but once Sari gets back, she kind of leads the charge against Coach and Chrissy, and everyone is kind of like, all right, yeah, sure. But Joe is the one who's like, no, we can't do that. No, we can't do that. I'm gonna have to lead the charge on something else. And then he later says to Tiffany that he can't vote for Coach out of principle, which, I don't know. But the reason I bring all that up is to say Joe is kind of an enigma this season, right? And you just talked about it. I think the reason, from what I can gather, is probably, as you said, he just watched himself have the biggest edit ever and then lose in a whimper just a few weeks earlier. And now he has to go back and he has to play Survivor seemingly with those two people who just kind of ran all around him. And I think that really manifested itself in the first few episodes with the Rick Devens of it all. But I think it's definitely still around.
Yeah, totally. I do think Joe has definitely been different this time around. And I think also maybe a big part of it also is because Eva's not there either. I think Eva was probably like a strong person for him in there, and he doesn't have that. So but yeah, I just think Joe is different. I was proud of Joe that he did kind of own up to Tiffany and is like open to work with her. I was kind of like, okay, like that feels slightly different than what you probably would have normally done in your previous season. So I was kind of glad about that. I was like, okay, so Joe is kind of doing the thing, but you're right. He doesn't have the agency or the like chutzpah to like be able to get people on his side. Like there's not anything. And, we can talk about the power of Sari whenever she gets back. But, like, It's like no one's even budging. And I don't know. Have you heard the lore about Joe's vote?
The lore about Joe's vote? I have not. I just assume. I assume that they did, like, a blood oath or something. I don't know.
Well, so no. So, Coach in the episode said, like, I'm not writing his name out on principle.
Yeah.
Apparently... And maybe this is not true. I think Coach said this, but apparently when he went up to vote, he only wrote Chrissy's name down. And they made him go back and write Coach's name down.
Wow.
And I'm like, that is hilarious. And if you look back at his vote, it kind of makes sense because, like, he writes Chrissy's name and it's, like, pretty big. And then Coach's name is, like, on the bottom. And it looks like he forgot to put the extra C. So it's kind of funny. But it's just, like, one of those things where it's, like, this is where the honor integrity thing, you can't do it in Survivor. You just can't do it. It's not possible. I'm sorry. You can't do it. If you
it's
tell
not.
one lie, that's it. There's no more honor and integrity.
It is in fact not possible. I'll say this: I think the honor and integrity thing can get you this far. I think it can. I think this episode's a good
Sure.
proof of how far honor and integrity by themselves can get you, because Joe is kind of playing it as straight laced as possible, and in this
Right.
episode he had to make a choice and kind of floundered about it. But at the same time, because he's such a predictable player, and as you said, he has the ability to own up to, his mistakes or whatever. That's predictability, and that's something that people can work with, and that's why Tiffany, I'm sure, was like, okay, sure, yeah, but I'll work with you, sure. I need allies. You're a famously good ally, but then for Coach, it's like, well, you're just a hypocrite and you're just
Right.
lying. The more you insist on honor integrity and it's not true, the more it means nothing and your word never meant anything to anyone. So
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting. And then you kind of have Chrissy and Stephanie, who I think kind of sat in the middle of that. Stephanie, especially, is kind of in the middle of that, where I think that she's doing the honor and integrity thing, but I don't know. Or maybe she's just really bad at lying. I really don't know.
Could be
I
both.
can't tell with her. Yeah. Um, yeah. But that's kind of my thoughts on the whole Joe experiment this season. I think even though it hasn't always been entertaining, this Joe mess that we find ourselves in, I think it's
Sure.
very interesting, especially with the knowledge
Mm-hmm.
that he just saw himself lose on TV, but I think still wants to play the same game, but is also a naturally very paranoid person.
Yeah,
So,
you can
yeah.
just tell. And like, good lord, I mean, his eyes are about to pop out and hit me in the face on my television screen every time
Seriously.
he's always like, I'm like, good lord, are you okay, my guy? Like,
Um, speaking of people who are okay, look, what happens here is we have all these people, we have this big challenge, but of course we have an odd amount of people. So,
can we talk about
Sari,
that for just like 1 second? Like,
sure.
what's up with this? Like, why are we doing this? Like, you can just wait to do the twist at the final 12, but you're choosing to do it now.
Yeah.
Or it's even back with the blood moon. Why do we have to send 2 people to exile? You could have just made the tribes uneven. You've done that before. Like, I don't like. I just it's some of the decisions made by production. I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, you could have made this so much more difficult on yourself, which I wasn't
I
complaining because we got lots of Suri this episode, so I was fine.
I agree with that, like, theoretically, but to be honest, I also don't, in the sense of like, well, what is the best part of both these twists? I mean, you could say a lot of things are the best part about this twist, but like the best part of the Blood Moon twist was like Ozzy gets to open the note and see he goes to Exile Island and is bummed about it. And then
That is true.
the
Yeah.
strategy of picking Rizzo, was probably the best decision he could have made. And
Yep.
so those two were safe. And then everything else sucked after that. So,
That was the only good part.
and then here it's like, well, I mean, I think you're right that they could have waited an episode, but also that we wouldn't have gotten this great Suri saga, this great Suri part where she goes to Exile Island and she is bum puzzled by coconuts,
So was
by
I.
1,000 coconuts. Um, I think I want to speak on this very very quick point before we go to what actually happened here. Uh, if there was ever proof that Survivor just plants the fruit that you see at camp, plants the coconuts because they reuse the same islands over and over again, this is it. Because if you have access to 1,000 coconuts, so many coconuts, you can literally just like place them on a beach, like get like a dump truck and just dump coconuts on the beach or whatever. I mean, that
I think
says
it was
something.
2,000 coconuts. I think it was double that.
There's a lot. I mean, we could spend the
There's a
rest of the
lot of them.
podcast counting the coconuts in this shot, but I'm just gonna guess that, yeah, in this shot alone there were probably more than 1,000. So I don't know. I'm not a coconut expert, and I've never claimed to be a coconut expert, which I think is important to mention too. But yeah, I think that's crazy. So hey, here we are. It's Suri Fields. You may have heard of her. She goes to Exile Island, and it's like, all right, there's a bunch of coconuts. You gotta find the one with the phoenix symbol. Go. If you want to go back to camp and you want to have a vote back at camp. And I want to ask you what you thought about this whole coconut adventure and also what the reward was.
Um, well, I think part of me was very excited that it wasn't anything too strenuous for Sweet Serene.
Yeah.
And I was like, kind of a bummer. I bet her back kind of hurt after doing all that, bending down and twisting the coconuts and seeing if they were all whatever. So I think for the most part, I really enjoyed that. It was like pretty self-explanatory, nothing too bizarre, but like just difficult enough to where like it does kind of like bring out something in the person that's going to have to do it. And I thought the reward was manageable. I kind of worry to some extent, like, did the people when she got back consider like, oh, she's got something else? Or
yeah, I was curious.
Was kind of my thing, because it feels like every other journey minus Ozzy but then again, Ozzy and Rizzo didn't have anything that they could have won or
it's true,
like gamed or whatever. Like there's nothing they could have done about that either. So I do wonder like if Suri's gonna come back with some flashback or some flack about like not a flashback. She
definitely some flashbacks. There was a flashback.
Yeah. But I just worry that she's gonna get a little bit of a target on her back. But I'm also hoping that because she brought the coconut with her, was a little more of like, hey, this is what I did. Here it is. This is all I got. And that's actually all that happened. But like every other journey, minus again the Ozzy and Rizzo of it all, like has had something come of it. So I definitely do think that but I thought it was good. Like it was like, here is like, you have no say, mainly because you didn't get to compete in the immunity challenge.
Yeah.
But then you have to earn it. And so I kind of liked that. I liked that she kind of had to have some kind of task, again, that's like strenuous, but not too unrealistic. My only question is to the production is like, I wonder like how close the timer was, because we got like one shot of the hourglass going down, and I'm like, I wonder how much time she had left, because we didn't have to go back. Because like my watch party we were doing, like they were like, run back to the start. I was like, I think she has to find it. I don't think she has to go back.
I think it's a good question. I think that this was a good I'll call it a journey challenge, even if it wasn't technically.
Sure.
I think this is a good journey challenge, and what you were saying, where it's like it's not too strenuous, anybody can do it. But also, I don't know if there's like a super crazy difference in efficiency that like Jonathan could do with this challenge than Sarif could do. All you're doing is you're kind of just like looking at coconuts. I don't know really how efficiently you can do that. So I would assume, especially because I think Sari was going about in a pretty smart way with the rose, that she probably had quite a bit of time left, and that's why we didn't see it. But I do want to ask you this. I saw some people online. I don't know if it was complaining, but definitely making note of the fact that like there were quite a few shots of the camera just like at the right coconut. And Bryce, is this did production cheat to help Suri win? What happened here?
No, I don't think that. And this is why. People are like, I've seen this video, this guy, and he's like, I'm a Survivor producer, like, oh, I'm just taking a video of this coconut. And I'm like, guys, GoPros exists? Yeah. Cameras that are like this big exist? Like, I'm like, guys, there's other options. Like, you mean to tell me, like, I guarantee you there was just a GoPro or something that was like hidden under the I don't know, but like, give them some credit. Come on. Like, they are not that like too, and like, it wasn't like that great of a shot. Like, it was just kind of like, It does feel a little convenient. I do recognize that, but they know where the coconut is, so they can easily just plant a little camera, be like, okay, let's put it into focus. Oh, okay, great. So she's like right there. It's going to look great.
Yeah.
Give them some credit. Like, I don't think they rigged this for Suri in any kind of way. Like, it's so like, I've had people in the past be like, well, Survivor's rigged. I'm like, I don't think it's rigged in any kind of like, in terms of like challenges, in terms of like stuff like that, because I think that's really hard to like combat in like a lawsuit per se.
Yeah.
I don't know. But like, I'm just like, I have a hard time believing that there was a cameraman as she's like turning these over,
who's just like
at
look,
this camera. Like, I mean, because if I'm sorry, but if I was Serene and I saw a cameraman standing right there, like you wouldn't see her because she was kind of like walking like on the horizon of the coconut. And I'm like, if she saw them doing that, I would just start walking straight to them. Like I wouldn't try to like keep looking for the I would just be, oh, well, that's where it is. So I just find that really hard to believe, but that's just me. Yeah. That's just me. Maybe I'm too optimistic in Survivor production.
No, I think you're right. I honestly didn't think about the GoPro thing, which is not to say that I thought that they would be having a giant camera pointed directly at this coconut, but I do think it says something that, hey, there's 1,000 coconuts there. They probably have a lot of different shots from a lot of different coconuts that they didn't use.
Yeah, 100%.
So, I think either way, I thought it was a nice moment. And hey, Suri manages to win. She gets the ultimate coconut, the Phoenix coconut. And you did mention this before, but I thought it was kind of crazy that she was allowed to bring it back to camp.
I did think it was crazy, but I was like, great, perfect.
I almost wonder if Suri was like, hey, can I take this back to camp? And then production was like, yeah, you can have it as a memento. Yeah, take it as a memento for being Suri and getting through that. And then she used it at camp, and production was like, that was our bad. My bad. Because I don't think they would normally do that. But I don't know.
Could have been. And also just like a hand clap of the hands for the montage of Suri.
Sure.
Like was so great. And just seeing all the flashbacks, minus maybe the balance beam, but whatever. The effing balance beam. But I just like really appreciated that and just was like, man, this is what Survivor 50 is kind of about in some sense of like, what the show has done for people like Suri. And so it was really, I really appreciated it.
For sure. I think it was very good. I think harkening back to the Micronesia confessional about the brains and
so good.
and the muscle and whatever. Very good. I want to know how many times Eric has gotten voted out on Survivor now. Because
so many.
He's always like hanging his head in sadness every time. Every time. God.
You should get royalties for that.
Poor guy. I hope he does. He doesn't, but I hope he does.
I hope one day maybe they're like, "Hey, Eric, here you go."
His life is fine. I'm sure he's okay with it, or at least he's used to it at this point. I don't know if you can ever be okay with it, but whatever.
I think even with Suri going on this season, he's like, "Oh boy, here we go again. They're gonna start putting my face back on."
Yep, they did it in episode 1, and they did it again, and I don't know. Watch Ozzy somehow get the same thing for his reaction on the jury. Like, I've been on the jury so many times. I've seen the craziest things, and then you get Eric's torch stuffed again. Now's finally my time to be a 0 vote finalist or whatever.
Well, I don't know. I feel like Ozzy's got a chance.
I do too. I just said that. For the jokes, for the funnies.
For the jokes. But let's talk about Suri coming back, because this is the meat and potatoes that I was wanting.
Nothing funny about this. This is pure seriousness.
Pure seriousness.
But it does involve Ozzy and Micronesia, because Suri comes back to camp, and it's crazy. The switch is immediately flipped from, well, we need to get rid of Devins and Aubrey, to, you're so right, Suri. What was I freaking thinking? Yeah, of course we need to get rid of Coach and Chrissy right now. Adoy. Here's my thought on this matter. Is I think Suri is definitely right that Coach and Suri getting them out in the same fell swoop is something you won't be able to do later. But I think the same is also true of Devins and Aubrey. So, I don't know. What are your thoughts? Because you seem to disagree.
I disagree a little bit, only because I feel like Aubrey, and one, because of Aubrey's whole, like, she didn't play her idol at the Genevieve vote, like, that kind of spilled over, and then she was kind of forced to play her idol when Dee was going home, which she didn't need to do anyway, but I digress. Yeah. She kind of felt like it was like a give and take. Like, I'm going to do this, and maybe people will be more open to working with me now. But I also think now that Rick's done this whole idol play, which we'll get to, but like, sorry, I can't wait to get to that. But I am just like, I don't know if they're going to be able to like bounce back from this. Like, I just don't think like with Aubrey and Rick Devens, like they just feel like bigger targets than me than Chrissy and Coach. Whereas I feel like Chrissy and Coach could be very easily those like, oh, we're just going to come back and get to them later, or we're just going to take them to the final three with us, whatever. Like, it's just one of those things where I just feel like Coach and Chrissy are maybe never going to get voted out, or maybe one of them will and the other one won't. Like, I just feel like Rick and Aubrey are too big of targets, and they're going to dig themselves more of a grave. That's just my opinion, though.
It's an interesting point. I think what I agree with you on is not exactly what you're saying, but it's what I kind of infer from it, which is Coach and Chrissy were never going to get voted out, but it wasn't necessarily because they were going to win. I think it was more like there's very little chance that they're going to win. And we already kind of talked about this with Coach, but Chrissy's the same way, where it's like Chrissy's definitely more strategic, but also it's kind of like Joe. I have no faith in her being able to pitch her game. In the sense of I think she can pitch her game, but I think if she makes the end, it will be because everybody hates her, or it will be that will be a side effect of the matter. Just because like I don't know, like this is a little rude, but I think this is basically agreed upon. Chrissy's just kind of annoying. Like, yeah, she's a good strategist. She plays the game well, but she was kind of annoying in Heroes versus Healers versus Hustlers, and was kind of annoying on this season. So,
sure.
But that's just my personal opinion. Anyways.
Yeah, that's fair. I see that for sure as well. But I also just like, it's kind of what Suri said anyway. She kind of said they're kind of the mom and dad of the group. And like, it's kind of going to free up Suri and like working with Stephanie and working with Jonathan and, doing all these things. But it does leave them in more of a vulnerable position, because I think Suri's kind of noticing that like Aubrey and Rick are kind of seen as floaters, which, by the way, they're talking about the floaters, or like, is everyone just like, that's not against Tiffany a floater? Because like they were talking about these two sides, and I'm like, what are the sides? Middle. I don't really know what the sides are. Like, I don't fully get it. But I was just really curious about that. But I do think that Chris and Coach just do have this sense of like they can rally people around that. I mean, you even saw it with like the beginning scene of like, Jonathan and Stephanie are talking, and then Jonathan gives Chrissy a side hug as she comes in. Like, is Chrissy maybe a little bit annoying? Sure. But she does have people, and she does have power. And I think Rick and Aubrey don't have the power that maybe Chrissy has. I wonder if it was more of like Chrissy getting rid of Chrissy, and Coach is just kind of like a bonus. Like, let's get Coach out of here. Because I also don't know if Coach would even work with Suri, like as they got down to the wire.
It's a good point. Yeah, no, that's a good point. For sure. I think the answer is probably no. But I think regardless, I think if anyone's going to do a move to get rid of, somebody who's going to take up a seat at the end, it's going to be Suri, who did that way back on Exile Island with Courtney. Like, she knows how to do that. And I think if that crossed her mind, which it very may well not have, but I just believe that it probably did, because she's Suri. I think she pitched it the right way, where it wasn't like, let's get rid of people who will have seats at the end. Let's instead get rid of people who you'll never be able to take this shot again, because they wouldn't be voted out, because they wouldn't be targets. Right. So I think that was really, really smart. And I just love Ozzy has been great this season. I appreciate Ozzy a lot. Especially after Game Changers, which, I mean, I hear that he was on, but there's no proof of that. Having him just kind of very openly be like, yeah, man, I'm not very good at Survivor strategy. I'll just listen to other people. It's so refreshing, especially from South Pacific, the last season that he played, where he was trying to do everything strategically and had no idea what was going on. Right. It's great. It's great. So, yeah.
Ozzy definitely, this has been my favorite season of Ozzy, I think. And, I understand the lore behind Ozzy and like why he was so great, and
Yeah, he dives like a
he was
fish.
fun in Cook Islands and Micronesia. Micronesia, he was a little cocky, but like I was kind of like in this mindset of like like I was like I don't know how much he's gonna change from this, and I felt that way with Coach as well. But obviously Coach digressed into his old ways, and Ozzy really has evolved into a Survivor player. And I do think
He's Oscar.
I do think he is Oscar. I do think he is maybe putting too much stock in letting Suri help him out.
Sure.
But at the same time, I think he is recognizing, and he's, I think, doing a good job of building relationships. I mean, people really aren't targeting Ozzy
No.
at this moment in time. So I feel pretty great so far about where he's positioned, especially with this trio alliance with Rizzo and Suri. I think that's great for him. So I've really been enjoying Ozzy this season as well.
I want to ask this question because I feel like we're starting to get to the point where I think it's valid to ask this question, which is we don't have too many old era people on this season. We had Colby, we had Jenna, we had Coach, we had Sari, we have Ozzy, maybe one or two more that I'm forgetting, Stephanie, maybe one more that I'm forgetting about. Do we think that this is a swan song for all of these castaways, or do you think there's a chance that one or two of them will still come back for another returnee season after this? Because I know there's still a lot of game left, but I feel like we can get a sense of who
Like if
matters.
they're done with Survivor after this.
If Survivor's done with them is kind of my question.
Oh, I see. I mean, I think with a few, like, I think with Jenna but also it's one of those things where I wonder, yes, Survivor, I think Survivor is done with Jenna. I think they're done with Colby. But
Yeah,
also I think they're both done with Survivor. I didn't get the sense, maybe Jenna's not after getting voted out first, but like Colby, it kind of felt like he even said in preseason press, like, this is kind of it for me. Like, I'm not kind of
yeah.
done. I mean, these people are getting older. And I will say every year I'm like, Sari's probably never going to play again. And then
I
here we
know.
go. Then there's another cast announcement, and then Sari's there. I'm like, what are you doing?
I will say Cerie's kind of the reason I asked this question because
Sure.
she said going into this season and after Australia versus the world that, hey, this is my last hurrah. Survivor's been good to me. This is my final ride. And it's like I don't want to be a skeptic, but I'm also like, okay, even if you're not going on Survivor ever again, you're still gonna be on like every reality show because you always are. It's her and Sandra are on every reality show. They find a way. Except
They
Sandra
find a
goes,
way.
yeah,
I would say maybe now for Suri, it would more so be like a kind of something like this, where it's like 50, Australia versus the world. Like, it has to be like a big name thing. I don't think she's ever going to do what she did on Big Brother again, which I don't understand how no one knew who she was. Well, I guess some of them did, but
some of them did, but they didn't know who she was. Yeah.
right. And so I'm like, I don't know how that's possible.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just I'm in the reality TV world and some people aren't, and that's fine. But I do think unless it's another one of those big all-star, bringing people back, I think Suri's probably done. And I do think that to some extent, most of these people that we've seen in this season, I don't foresee Survivor wanting to come bring them back. Some of them I was kind of even surprised they even come back. I kind of wasn't expecting Coach, to be fully honest with you.
Yeah, I wasn't either.
I kind of thought that I was kind of done. Even Ozzy, I was kind of not ready for Ozzy to say, well, Ozzy had other reasons why I didn't think he was ever going to get asked back, but I was like, oh, interesting. So, never say never, but I would say for the most part, I would say for maybe a Chrissy or a Christian who this is their first opportunity to return since their original season. I wouldn't say it's out of the ordinary for them. Maybe less so for Chrissy, but definitely for Christian, I would love to see Christian back again. But
yeah. I mean, I think those players, because they played within the last 10 years, that's a whole different thing. Or their original season was 10 years ago. But I think the cutting off point is maybe Aubrey for that, where if you came after Aubrey, then it's all right, is this your last hurrah on Survivor, or are we going to see you back? Because especially for someone like Aubrey, this is her fourth time out there. She was an alternate. Is she?
I was shocked she was there. I was like, what?
Yeah, I was shocked, but she has pleasantly surprised me this season. So good for you, Aubrey. But regardless, it's if Cerie's not going to be back, we just saw Coach get voted out in this very ceremonious fashion. We were already surprised that he came back.
Mhm.
Jen is not coming back. Colby's not coming back. Is Ozzy gonna be our new? Are we gonna throw Ozzy out there over and over and over again until
I
he
don't know.
wins,
I
or
kind
like
of think
is
it. I
he
think
done
he's.
too? I don't
I
know.
just don't see it. I just don't see it. Like people like Ozzy and Coach and even Suri, like it was like I was kind of shocked they were on it. Well, Suri, I wasn't that shocked, but for some of these people, I was like shocked to see them on there. But then I thought to myself, and I was like, well, if they were going to come back, they would come back for this.
Yeah.
So, I don't think if they ever did like a Heroes versus Villains 2, which I don't know why they've never done that before. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect anything from them in that sense. But that is a good question, though. If they do, I think for most of them, it's the Swan Song. I feel like for the ones that we have seen, which are, let's see, Jenna, Colby, Christine, Coach. Yeah, I just don't see any of those old school per se coming back anytime soon, if ever.
Yeah. I agree, which is why when we have this remontage, I'm like, it really has been a ride.
It's been such a ride, a journey.
But anyways, back at camp, it's interesting to me because Coach and Chrissy are already being floated out as a name. Obviously, I think that naturally makes sense. But things really escalate against them when Chrissy throws out Rizzo's name. And that's the thing, is that like Rizzo continues to be kind of in the middle of everything. And we even get confessionals about like Rizzo says, that's the one thing. Well, I don't know what that voice was, but whatever Rizzo sounds like, he's from New York. It's close enough. He's like, the thing about me. No, that's not it either. I don't know what I'm doing. Rizzo says, hey, if you target me, you go home. And that seems to be true. I mean,
happening. It keeps happening.
Ozzy and Rizzo are so well insulated, it's crazy. And neither of them has to try right now, but they're playing well by themselves regardless, because they each have idols that are not being targeted, and they have the power of Suri on their side, which means that they win immunity every round, even when they don't. So yeah.
Right.
It's fun.
No, for sure. I was really impressed with I have loved Rizzo eons more than I did last season. Like he's just, and he had his cocky moments still. Like he had like kind of what you were talking about, like his moment of like, when you target me, you go home. I'm like, okay.
Okay, all right, yeah, whatever.
It's like you did want Aubrey and Devins to go home originally. Let's not forget that. So it's things like that where I'm like, but I have really enjoyed him this season. Him and Ozzy and even Suri, like they are the top players this season, I think, in terms of like where they currently stand in this top 11. Like I just don't think any of the three of them are going home in the next episode.
Yeah, I would be very surprised. And I'll say this about Rizzo too. And I think honestly this goes for quite a few seasons, but I do think if you have a good returnee season that shows off your character well, it can make past seasons better. I think I mean we just talked about Ozzy for a while. I think the Ozzy coach beef of this season, especially the first few episodes, makes South Pacific a better season in retrospect. I think that also applies to 49, where it's like 49's a bad season of Survivor. But with the knowledge of how Savannah and especially Rizzo interacted with other people on this season, I think it, in retrospect, makes it a little better when Rizzo pulls out his idol for the 5th time and is like, but I'm not playing it this time. Because you're like, that's classic Rizzo. That's classic Rizzo right there.
Sure. Yeah, and even for Savannah, who was only here for 2 episodes, she was only there for a little bit, but I did enjoy her more in 50 than I did.
I agree.
So I think she's a great player. Like, I'm not denying that, but I do think that her way she came off on TV was a lot better in 50, I thought, despite her only 2 episodes stint.
And hey, I'll say this, even I think 48's probably a better season in retrospect, just because you can appreciate Kyle's dominance more. You can recognize Joe's paranoia more. And you can be like, man, this is a season that has Camilla on it, and we're actually seeing her. Isn't that awesome? Not to say that makes either 49 or 48 great seasons all of a sudden.
No.
But it makes them a little more palatable, for sure.
Yeah,
so yeah.
For sure.
All right, well, let's start getting into what's going down at camp even more because we have the Jonas of it all, but eventually the targets kind of go around 3 of these 6 groups that are up for elimination. We've got the Aubrey Devons of it all, we got the Coach and Chrissy of it all, and we have rumblings about the third group, which is a group that I cannot remember. But there were rumblings about a third. Oh, Rizone Emily. Rizone Emily. But eventually it seems to just go towards the first 2 I mentioned.
Sure.
Until Rick Devens decides, you know what? I'm not feeling very comfortable. I gotta get up to some shenanigans. So, but before we talk about the great idleness of what's been going on, I want to ask you what
Yes.
you thought they wanted to do with it beforehand, before we saw what happened this episode.
Before the fake idol.
Yeah, when they planted the fake idol,
Mm.
did you think they were going to be able to use it? And if they did, how did you think they were going to use it? If you even thought about that, because I thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was in a scenario kind of like this one where
Yeah,
I felt like it was going to be like a split vote situation. I don't know what the whole ramifications of like the specifics that they were kind of going for here, but I think also they did it in like, was it the first tribal or the second tribal that they planted it?
I think it was the second.
Okay,
Yeah.
so like the second tribal when they planted it, like I think they maybe sensed a swap was coming soon. And so I wonder if that was also maybe the original intent for the fake idol was like if they are in trouble at the swap tribe, they can go up and use it. So I don't know, but it is like that just that shock factor, especially if like I know Suri and Rick were kind of swap screwed, like being the only Sela on their tribe. So like in those situations where it's like they kind of felt like maybe they were on the chopping block if that would have happened, especially if they were in like in that scenario exactly where it's like maybe one other person from their original tribe and they're one of them getting targeted. It's like, well, I have this idol that I found because of XYZ.
Yeah.
And so I think that was kind of the intent behind it. I don't know if it was intended like, or if they had even talked about doing that in between. I can't tell. Christian's reaction makes me think that it was planned beforehand, but I don't know. Like, I do wonder what their like initial intent. So I'd be interested to see. I hope Rob and other people that talk to them after, I hope they press into that and see what their original thoughts were.
Yeah, so my guess is that how Devon's used it this episode is how the plan always was. But my guess was, hey, when you plant the idol at camp and or at tribal, and they know, and Devon's and Christian knows that there's absolutely nothing actually in the parchment. My guess would have been that you only use it like, say Christian gets blindsided and Devon's is there. That's when you go sifting through the front of it and are like, I just found a clue, which I think is which is a way worse idea than what Devon's did, which is why he's on Survivor and I'm not. But I think that's what I thought was the best way to use it, because I figured, okay, well, if you just grab an idol in the middle of tribal, people are still going to vote for you, especially when they ask what's in it. But the way Devon's played this was so good that it didn't matter. So I want to ask you about what you thought about the actual moment, him sifting through the front of tribal council, and then the big bluff game that came up afterwards. What were your thoughts?
I mean, it was fantastic. Like, just it was great television. You know, we've been seeing and like they kept, which it was really funny. Stephen and Rob pointed out this on the know-it-alls the other night, but like they have been like showing us in the previously on them planting this idol in every previous on except for this episode. So like I was not ready for this at all, but it's just the way that he went about it. It's like he's like, I'm really annoyed. I've only found this clue and I haven't had a like he kind of just like builds it up to the sense of like in like, hey, this is kind of what I'm frustrated with. Like, here's what I've been dealing with. It's like, but here it is now. Like, that's mine now. And so it's one of those things where, and I wonder also, like, you know, they're at tribal for, we know, multiple hours. They're, you know, longer, but they're longer than 20 minutes or however long that's a long time. They don't show us 20 minutes of tribal, but, like, we know that, but I wonder, like, how much, like, I mean, you even see Emily's face was so good whenever it, like, zooms in on her. She's like, what in the world? Like, what are you doing? And so, but it's like, it's the shock factor. It's like wait, there's an idol there? Like, what in the world? And, like, it was just the way he did it. And gosh, him telling Stephanie, "Oh, knowledge is power. I'm not showing you what it looks like." I was like, yes. I was like, that's exactly what you have to do in that scenario because yeah, it could be a bluff, but he doesn't need to open it. He knows what he's like. I've gotten the clue. That's where it told me that it is. And I will say though, I've been thinking about this in that I do think this tribal may have been the best opportunity of what you just said of like they could still vote you out, but there's repercussions if it is real and they throw their votes on, Coach and Chrissy or somebody else, and if you all voted for Devins and Aubrey, then like you're screwed, and like you don't want to like get bounce back from that. So, but to that point, I am curious because I know there's been kind of like some debate about like how much this actually had an impact on the vote. So I'm curious to hear what you think in terms of like how did this translate to like getting the vote onto Coach and Chrissy?
It's a good question. I think if nothing else, it did sway some votes. I think
Yes.
it turned it from a close tribal council in which Devons could have gone home to, well, I guess we got to vote at Coach and Chrissy, which I think means that the idle non-play was basically as successful as it could have been
Right.
because it could have saved him from going home, and it could save him again for a future tribal council because of the way that he played it, which once again I thought was so good. Like he pulls this out, drama ensues. I like how Devins is like, well, now you can really see the alliances go. And Jonathan in his dumb robe is like, yeah, well, the same is true of you. I guess that's what Jonathan sounds like. Um, and yeah, no, it's fun. And I like how Devins is like, knowledge is power. I'm not showing you. I also just like the spectacle of it all because I mean the whole episode is basically people being like Rick Devens is really good at finding idols because they still believe that he found the idol that got given to Aubrey.
Which I
Um,
think was a crazy move, by the way. Like, I would never want credit for someone finding it out. I'd be like, no, they did it, not me.
but I mean, if you're gonna take the credit, then you got to do something like this where it's like, all right, now you are Russell Devens, where you are just you
Russell.
have an innate dowsing rod to find idols, and it's like people wanting to target you are fools. I think that's good. I also, yeah, I thought it was just so fun. It was so fun.
It was so fun.
I loved how Aubrey was the most thankful person on planet Earth, and then her blank expression when Devins lies to her and is like, I can't use it yet. Sorry." Her blank expression's really good.
It
Um,
was. But I also, I do want to give Devins credit though with
yeah,
that because like in the voting confessional, he's like, I can't play it. I'm just lied to Aubrey. And I don't know if he already come up with that lie or whatever, but it seems like from when he voted to when he didn't play it, he came up with this like, I have to make sure I leave with it before I can play it, which I thought was great. Like I was like, that's a great because that is something that like Survivor has
it
kind of
happened.
opened up their repertoire with the whole butterfly thing. Like, wow, look at that. Xander's impact on
Xander's
Survivor
impact.
50 nine
Wow.
seasons ago. Crazy. But like just even but it is true. It's like that's not a crazy thing that could have happened. And I don't know if you've seen this, but I know some people thought Dee had an idol because she put on a fashion show at the original Kahlo Beach.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Because apparently I read this somewhere. I think it was, I don't know where it was, but they basically found out because Vatu did a fashion show, and
Sure.
so when they heard that Kahlo had done a fashion show and Dee was kind of the one that was leading the fashion show, they kind of thought maybe she had something. But again, it's like those kinds of things are now possible to happen, and like you do kind
Yeah.
of question those things of like, is that real? Is that not real? Like I don't know.
That's interesting. I had not heard that, but that's kind of hilarious.
That's so funny.
Um, yeah, I think it's true that when Devins goes sifting through the front of tribal council, especially because it's season 50, I think that there's no reason to think that, oh man, this is another one of Devins's dumb plays when he
Mhm.
actually finds something and it's been sitting there the whole time. Like there's no opportunity that the players that could have been planted when they walked into tribal council by Devins. Like everyone would have noticed it. So I think it was really good in that sense. I also think it was good in the sense like the only person who knows about it is Christian. Emily was as surprised as everybody else. Ozzy was as
Yes.
surprised as everybody else. So I think that also led to it where his own allies are kind of like, what just happened?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. And you've brought up a good point that I agree with of like, I like that he kind of sift through it. Like he didn't just walk up and grab it.
yeah,
Like he actually like made the effort to like, oh, let me see if I can find it. And then, oh, I found it or whatever. And like made it not so like, hey, I planted that there like 2 weeks ago and now it's still here. So yeah, I didn't even think about that. So that's really it was masterful TV. We were cheering, like we were like, yes, it finally happened. Because like they have been teasing us for weeks about when this is gonna get brought out. And so
yeah,
I'm glad that it finally did.
yeah. It's very good. Very, very good. Um, Gosh, I have so many things I want to say about it. I really just want to break it down. I mean,
Break it down.
so many things I loved here. I love the fact that I love Stephanie's role in this, and the reason why I love Stephanie's role in this is because she's the skeptic, kind of comparatively to everybody else. I like the fact that Devons goes up and grabs it so quickly, and she literally says, "Wait, what happened? What?" Because she's just kind of passive that way, and
Yeah,
so they say he found the idol, and he's like, "Well, he has to show us. Why aren't you showing us?" And it becomes an avenue for Devons to kind of just flex on him a little bit, just to
totally.
prove why he should not have been an alternate and why he should have just been on the season outright.
Do we know
Um,
who he replaced, or do we just know that he?
I was just thinking about that. I do not know. I do not know. I'm pretty sure Andy was also an alternate. Um,
Well, I
so
think Rizzo. I always understood as Rizzo took Andy's spot is what I
oh, is that it? Okay,
that was kind of what I had heard, but I don't know. But
gotcha.
I agree with you. I think Stephanie's role definitely was a key factor for sure. And, but also like she didn't really go about it in a great way where she kind of is also like questioning in her mind. Like she goes up and talks to like Christian, Jonathan, Coach, and Christine. It was like, am I still writing down Devins? And then they're like, well, yeah, but he has an idol. It's like, but do you believe he has an idol or do you just not? So I do think it's interesting to like see what she does in that scenario. And it's funny because Stephanie's not really like an idol player.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
she doesn't come from that. I mean, like the first Hidden Immunity Idol was in her season, but like it's not necessarily like something that she's used to like working around, playing around. She's kind of like, wait, I don't want to have to do that. And I think that's like you said, a big reason why a lot of the votes just shift for a consensus Coach and Chrissy boot, which
yeah.
I don't know about you, but I was mortified when Coach played a shot in the dark. I was like, don't tell me. Don't tell me. Because I was like, because I had this unrealistic expectation, and I will be honest, it was unrealistic. I don't know why I thought this, but Coach, I did think had a shot to win
Oh, for sure. I
at the
think
beginning of the
yeah,
season. And I was
yeah.
like, am I delusional in thinking this? And so that part of my brain was still like, but does Coach really go home? And then so he pulls it out, and I was like, no, this can't be happening. Because I knew the minute he did that, Rizzo was going to play the idol, and then Aubrey and Devins was still. Because I really did think that maybe Aubrey and Devins was just going to be ousted this episode, but I'm glad that it didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that the coach winner arc was real in the sense of like, I know I listened to the pregame interviews and everyone was like, I want to work with coach.
Yes.
So, and then he seemed to be in the middle, or not in the middle, but leading the charge on his original tribe. But also, he never had to go to tribal council. So, I think
Yep.
that's kind of an important wrinkle there. Um, but yeah, no, I was totally with you on that. Um, and now it's a completely different environment. I think Sari was right in the sense of, when you get rid of and you get rid of coach and you get rid of Chrissy, that changes the whole dynamic of the game. Cause I mean, we saw the preview for the next episode and it's like, now it's Stephanie that's mad and not
Yep.
Tiffany. It's a whole new dynamic and one that feels more fresh in my opinion.
Sure. And I am interested to see because, I think 2 weeks in a row now, we've gotten Tiffany coming back from camp after the vote being like, I know I can't freak out. I know I have to keep my cool. So now I'm interested to see if Stephanie keeps her cool next week, whenever, because I have a feeling she might not, but I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So,
I want to make a comparison
Sure.
between this tribal council and a historic tribal council in the past,
Yeah.
where this episode's all about taking a guy who's kind of making the game frustrating, making it streamlined, who's a goofy
Mhm.
personality himself. And it's about taking them out, even though it's not necessarily the best move because they might not have the chance to win, but they're strong arming the boats and taking them out in a big flashy move that we could argue about whether or not it was actually a good move to do it like X, Y, and Z, or if it was necessary. Which boat am I talking about? Am I talking about this boat out, or am I talking about the Philip Shepard boat out in Survivor Karamoan? Because I got a lot of similar vibes between the two.
I agree.
Now that one had a bunch of idle plays that were unnecessary, and this one had a non-idle play that was necessary in the sense of
Sure.
you shouldn't play it. But either way, it was this big flashing move that's probably going to put a target to some extent on the person who did it.
Yep.
And it got rid of somebody who was controlling the game but also had no chance to win. So I think it'll be interesting to see how Devins does the rest of the season in comparison. Do we think he's going to be just like the immediate target now, or do you think people are going to be like, oh, he's actually going to play it?
I don't know. It's hard to say because I do think that Rick does have some people. He does have Christian. I think Emily. Emily might be kind of spooked by the whole. She seemed very thrown off by the idol play.
Aubrey's on his side now for
Aubrey's
sure.
on his side, but like I said, I don't know how much, and I don't know how much Cerie's gonna like that. Like I don't know. I think there's some people do like security, and if Devins is not showing security in allyship, then and granted, like he could have just thought that was like a big thing, but it's like I'm interested to see how he handles this going back. Like, does he tell everybody that it's fake? Does he tell? I think he should just keep the bluff going personally.
Sure.
I think he will keep the bluff going. Like it's fun, but also like if he tells somebody that it's fake, then everyone's just, oh, we'll just vote him out because they don't want to deal with it. But my next worry with him is like, they could also very well be like, you know what? Let's call your bluff. Play your idol. We're going to split the votes on you and Aubrey, and we'll see what happens. And so, and if he doesn't get a real idol and plays it, then he's probably going home. So I don't know if his, I think short term, it was good for him to get through the vote. Long term, I don't know how far he's going to get from this at this point.
It's an interesting point. I like it. I think you are correct. I do. I will also say I think it will be very interesting to see how all the other contestants react. And I don't mean as like a conglomerate. I mean individually. Like how's Ozzy gonna feel about another guy seemingly having an idol? Is he just gonna want to ignore that? Because on this season so far, people like Ozzy and Rizzo have not been targeted at all with an idol. Aubrey really wasn't targeted when she had an idol. Like her name was floating about, but like her name was not being written on parchment with the idol. I'm curious to see if people are going to be the same way about this Devins one, or because they know that because they don't know that it's a real idol / they don't know that it's part of a Billie Eilish boomerang idol conglomerate thing that all the tribes have. If they'll be more willing to suss it out. And most importantly, I want to know if Rizzo is like, all right, we got to take the shot. Because if Rizzo does that after his entire 49 game where he bluffs playing the idol and then doesn't, and then like calls the shot on somebody who can't play an idol, that's fantastic. That would be great.
It'd be great storytelling for sure.
Yeah, it'd be very good. And I'm just curious about it because I mean we're at what 12 people left in the game, so it's still a lot. 11, 12, 11. That's correct. Still a lot of people in the game, but room is increasingly running out of people who don't have advantages to vote out.
Yep.
So I will be very curious to see how that goes, for sure.
Yeah.
Right. Before we wrap things up, I do have a few more questions for you, just simple ones. Perfect. Number one, I mean, we talked a lot about what's going on so far this season, but I didn't ask you, and I haven't asked you, who you actually think is going to win at this point.
Yes, that is a great question because I feel like every week it changes, but I have a hard time thinking that Aubrey has a chance. There's a few people who I'm like, I don't think they have any chance to win, and Aubrey is one of those people. I don't think Tiffany has a chance. Unfortunately, I'm so bummed. Tiffany was my preseason winner pick, and I just don't think she's gonna be getting. I don't know what. I have appreciated that she's kind of had a spike in appearing on the season. I think that has been one of the key points. But I also want to mention one thing about Tiffany, and I know people were very upset when Zach Brown had more confessionals than Tiffany. I know, and I get why people were angry. But you know what? I wasn't angry because I don't want my winner pick to waste her breath in these confessionals talking about how much she likes Zach Brown. She doesn't like Zach Brown. Did you see her face? She did not like him. No, she did not. She wanted out of there immediately. Anyways, that's just my thing. I was very glad that I didn't get a fake. Oh, it was so fun to see Zach Brown. No, it wasn't.
Yeah, like Genevieve had that where she was like, yeah, I mean his fishing skills are just as good as his music or something like that.
So good at his music or whatever. And also, can we talk about the song choices, about the ones that he picked? Because listen, I used to be a Zach Brown fan.
Okay.
I listened to his older stuff, not any of his new stuff. It was like back when I was in my country hometown. Like that's Zach Brown was the man. Okay.
All right.
But they played Colder Weather. That is such a sad song. Like, have you listened to it? Like, I'm like,
no, I have not, but it does not seem.
Families?
Yeah, it doesn't seem accurate to the environment.
I would have been pissed if he didn't sing Chicken Fried. I'd been like, what the hell are you doing here? Like, why did you even come?
I mean, to be fair, that fish was not chicken fried.
It wasn't. Sure, whatever. But I don't care. I would have wanted to hear Chicken Fried. Anyways, let's go back to your original question. So yeah, I think there's some people who I just can't see winning, and I hate that they're all women. But I just don't.
I mean, this world.
I know. I just don't see a world in which Aubrey, Emily, or Tiffany. I just don't see the storyline, the gameplay. Like every time Emily talks, it's always the red herring. It's never the person that goes home. Like it's always that. And so I'm just like, I just don't see her winning. And then I kind of don't see Rick winning at this point after this move. I don't think before this move, I wouldn't say he was like in the best position or like was like the most biggest winner contender for me. But I don't think this move helped him in his win probabilities. And then I don't really think one of these like Joe, Stephanie, or Jonathan, I don't think they're going to win either. They just feel like one of them is going to be I could see one of them getting to the end and getting some votes from the people that are like from the coach and like it being kind of close. But I think right now, my top contenders to win, I would say they're in like two different tiers. I would say there's one tier of Rizzo and Ozzy. And then my second tier is Suri and Christian. And the reason why is I just feel like I like Rizzo and Ozzy's positions. I don't know if Rizzo has the like capability to like talk in front of the jury and do it, which makes me a little more hesitant. But he's had just a more consistent storyline throughout this whole thing.
For sure.
And but Christian and Suri, what I worry about for them is their target. Like Christian, I mean, we saw Christian in the pre-merge. Like, holy cow, the man was so many confessionals and so many, like he was running the show, but like
to the point where people were complaining about how much Christian was on their screen, which is crazy.
I'm like, excuse me, if you just gave me the whole episode and Christian's just narrating it for me, I'd be like, great, that's awesome. Let's keep that rolling.
Yeah.
So that I do worry that for him and for Suri for obvious reasons. I mean, there's going to come a point where they're like, all right, we gotta get rid of her. I just don't like as much as I would love it. I just don't think it's going to happen. So they're on the bottom two, and then Rizzo's at the top tier with me. But I'm currently feeling Ozzy. I think Ozzy right now is like who I feel best about in terms of like who is going to win, especially if he gets to the end and like Suri and Rizzo are on the jury. Like, I think he's got a shot. Like, I really just do. Like, I'm really liking where he's at right now. Like, he's not really being targeted. He has an idol in his pocket. He's got Suri to kind of help him navigate through. And maybe we're going to see this arc of like, hey, Suri's helped me, but now I don't really think I need her anymore. So I'm going to, move on to these other people. So that's kind of my where I'm at.
I love that. I think Ozzy has something going this season. I don't know what it is, but
Yes.
he's got something that's going. I will also go in tears because you went in tears. So
Perfect.
obviously cutting off Coach and Chrissy from this
Yeah,
equation, I would say people who have no shot to win. Joe, no shot to win. I think Stephanie. Well, no, I wouldn't even say Stephanie. Boy, I think that's it. I think everybody else has a shot to win except Joe.
sure.
Um, Going after that, I would say Tiffany, just because she was so invisible for so long.
Yeah,
I think there's a decent chance she sticks around for a while longer,
sure.
but I think that she's not gonna play meaningful minutes at the end, shall we say. Um, Stephanie, I think, is a similar story where it's like she I feel like most of the Stephanie content we've gotten is like, man, I was playing Survivor a long time ago and my whole tribe got decimated. And then it's like, well, that just happened. She's kind of well, that's just happening this season.
Yeah.
Which is okay. Um, Boy, after that is where it could go anyway. I guess I'll throw Emily into the next tier where it's like I could see Emily winning, but it would take a lot at this point. I
Yeah.
think it would take a lot of like, all right, we're really just getting rid of all the big targets. And I think Aubrey, unfortunately, is a similar story. Even if I do think if she won, it would be pretty fun. Um,
Yeah. I agree.
After that, I will put Rick Devens there. Kind of in a tier of his own of like if he has the Ben or the Mike or arc like that, like if he really just continues to pull some BS and then manages to win that way, you know, then he'll win that way. Um, After that, let's see, we have Jonathan, Christian, Rizzo, Ozzy, Suri.
Hmm.
I guess I'll put Suri in that next tier because I think it's like if she wins, it will be by virtue of she got to the end and then she somehow won immunity, or somebody took her just as like a yeah, you deserve it, like some loyalty bucks or whatever. Um, which would be by somebody by like Ozzy, who I would put in the next tier, or maybe the same tier where it's like unlike Suri, I don't trust you to immediately win a final tribal council, but I do trust you to get there a little more. Um, and then after that, I'll put Christian and Jonathan together as people who I think could make the end or be taken out soon, whenever, because of their threat level. If you want me to be honest, I think Jonathan fits the Brad Culpepper game changers mold here,
Oh, yeah.
where he is kind of like this big strong guy who's leading the charge on a lot of votes, and then will probably get a few votes at the end, but won't win. That is my guess. And then I
Yeah.
think the winner could be the man, the myth, the legend, RIZGOD, comma baby, because I don't know. I see it. I've seen the code. I think Rizzo's winning. I
I
do.
do see it, and that's why Rose is at the top for me. But I just don't know if he has it in him, and I do, wonder at some point is someone like, are we really gonna let this kid be the representative of that? That's my other thing.
That's a
Is I
good
do
point.
wonder if he does get to the end, like, are we really gonna let this kid who we don't even know how he did in his first season win? Like, that's another thing that I do worry about for him. Which I know is probably a bad reason to not vote for someone to win, but I just don't.
It's never happened before. I mean,
It's never happened
somebody,
before, and
you
I don't
know,
even know if I was on the jury, be like, wait, why am I voting for that? Like, because we've heard a few times from like Chrissy and Stephanie, like, we don't want that kind of person to win season 50, and I'm like, okay, let's dig into that a little bit more. What do you mean by that? Like, so like,
yeah,
what are
yeah,
you
yeah.
trying to look for, and like, who is like the rightful winner of
Sure,
Survivor
sure.
50? So
Yeah. No, it is interesting because I think that's a great point where it's people are naturally kind of hesitant to trust Rizzo, but despite that, Rizzo keeps getting trust.
sure,
What Rizzo says is correct when he says everybody that's come after me has gone home. I mean,
sure.
that's true, and it also says something that hey, his social relationships are good enough so that the pre-gaming doesn't matter because
Yeah.
many people have tried to target Rizzo at this point and it just hasn't worked. And Chrissy is the latest example of like and Chrissy, this entire season was basically targeting the unknowns, the
Hmm.
group think like, hey, we can get all these people to rally against Savannah or D, and Rizzo just seemed to naturally fall in line with that. But for whatever reason, The Riz God has not been usurped. Not
He's
yet.
still here. And he's
I
still
have
serving.
Yes. I have one more question for you.
Yes.
And that is a similar one, but on the opposite side of the spectrum, which is
Ooh.
who do we think is going home next episode and why?
Ooh, that's a tough one because it seemed kind of like in the next time on that we're gonna get some kind of twist again, which I'm like, Mr. Beast, when
Alright.
we come in, there's not that many episodes left. Like, I don't know. And so when I look at this board, I do think it's so tough because there's some people I'm like, I don't think you're going home yet. I do think the Stephanie, Jonathan, Joe will be in trouble, but they won't go home. Is kind of the vibe I'm getting.
Yeah.
I'm kind of getting the sense that one of Aubrey, Emily, there was somebody else, or Rick, I think are in the most danger this coming episode. I say most danger. I don't actually know that for a fact, but just like the way that they're aligned and who they're aligned with is just making me nervous in terms of their longevity in the game. Even though Jonathan and Stephanie kind of lose out on this vote, and Joe to an extent, like Joe should not have voted out Coach and Chrissy, but they have lost. But I do wonder if Sari and Ozzy can be like, no. It was just a one time. Like we just didn't think. I think they could definitely do that and run circles around them and bring them into the fold just to get them out the next week. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the vibe I'm getting, but I'm interested to see what you think. So I think my final answer would probably be, I think one of Aubrey or Rick are going to go home next week.
I disagree. I think that Devins will be able to use the idol for another week. I think Aubrey could go home as collateral damage, maybe, but I think it's more likely that that whole side just doesn't get targeted with the threat of Rick's idol being out there. I think it's far more likely somebody who is more in the middle, and somebody who isn't perfectly aligned with everybody else would be good. So I look at the person in dead middle of this image, and I'm like, well, Tiffany's still there. Tiffany is like, that would be the consensus boot, and that would be pretty easy to pull because the only real allies she has at this point still are now Joe, who Joe will fight for her, but no one will listen, and Aubrey. But Tiffany said this episode, yeah, I'm willing to target Aubrey. Sure. I don't like doing it, but I'll do it.
Sure.
I think that says that their strategic bond isn't quite as tight as it seemed during those first few episodes. So that's to say I will bank on it being Tiffany, but we'll see.
I see that. I also just wonder with her connection with Ozzy now, and like seems like her and Sari are working together pseudoli. So like I do see more benefit of Tiffany staying, but I also see your point where I do think Tiffany's not in a great spot. I'm not saying she's like in the clear or anything, but I just don't know if this like the honor and integrity people that are left. I don't think any of them are going to go home. I do think it is someone from this middle per se. I just wonder how much of this bluff will come to fruition.
Well, hey, we'll just have to see, and we'll just have to tune in and find out. So, hey, my final question, my real final question. Do you have any other thoughts on this episode that you didn't mention?
Oh, do I have any other thoughts? I mean, it was a good episode. I laughed. It was still great to see the Sari stuff. It really was a great episode overall. I think the one thing I did want to mention, though, is Chrissy putting Coach in timeout was just, honestly, after the last episode, I was like, this is kind of what I needed. I needed someone to put Coach in his place and make him shut up. And honestly, like I did love that, like he kind of got kind of a good send off, but he also got a little bit of made fun of with like him laying in the hammock, and then it kind of ripples into him and his dragon poses and the archway and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, at least we're kind of clowning on him a little bit still. Very underrated moment. I thought it was really funny. And also, actually, yes, one thing. What's up with everyone memorizing quotes before they go out here? Like, what?
I know. Joe did the same thing.
No, Joe did it. Someone else did it. Like, I don't even think it was like, it was Coach, Joe, and I feel like there was a third person. Maybe I'm misremembering, but like, I was like, I'm sorry. I can't really remember what I talked about last week, much less some random quote. And also like the one where Coach was like, it was either this person, or this financial analyst. And I was like, what? What are you saying? Like, so weird.
Yeah, it was funny because, Coach has one of his coach quotes, and then Joe does the Mike Tyson thing, and then I believe it's Christian and Emily look at each other like, "A what?"
Like, what are we doing? Yeah, no, I
Like like
agree.
like, is he trying to emulate Coach right now? So,
Yeah.
I guess that means that, hey, is new era Coach is Joe. Congratulations. It's everything that you've ever wanted. I'm sure everyone's thrilled about that.
Hey,
Um
they're on the same trajectory. They start on a season that ends with 8, and then they return 2 seasons later. We're getting there. We're
Wow, we're
moving.
getting there. We're getting there. Uh, and one last thing I did want to mention. My favorite part of the Rick Devens idol play, I forgot to mention, which is during the scrambling when Rizzo comes over and says, "You are insane for finding so many idols." Quote, "6 of those things, you're a devil," which is very funny because Devens has only found 4 and he's lied about 2 of them this season. So people think he's like the idol guy, which I think helps his game even more, or maybe hurts it. I think it helps though.
Sure.
Um, I just love that Jeff was then like, "Did we just have a fanboy moment
I
doing
did like
live
that Jeff
travel?"
pointed it out. That made it so much like I was like, oh, that's a fanboy moment. That's kind of fun. And then Jeff pointing it out, I was like, oh, perfect. That's
All
great.
right. Well, that is going to wrap up this episode of Seeing Good Moves Lately. Bryce, thank you so much for joining. And of course, we will be back next week. I will be in Toronto next week. So hopefully, I can have some insight about what happened up there and the people I met or the people I didn't meet. So stay tuned for that. And
I will be
yeah,
tuning in to that.
yes,
Get
yes.
all of the insights.
So thank you, everybody, for joining. Have a great rest of your day or night. And goodbye.